Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk Darling in the Franxx episode 3. And as you can see in the title, this is going to be a bit more critical. It's just, we're doing stuff and it's funny to point out the little things. So yeah, hey guys, episode 3 of Darling in the Franxx. So overall, before we get into the deeper things, a solid episode with the main point being arguably showing what exactly, or the ramifications of what actually happens when you ride with 02. Just showing us exactly what you can expect if you're not the protagonist. So in that regard, I do think that was the point of the episode, and then you have the other little things, developing the characters a little bit more, just fleshing out what kind of reactions the characters are going to have to one another, and then establishing a few things when it comes to the ability of people involved in these operations. So how do we start this off? Like, as you see in the title, it's incompetence to the utmost degree or something along those lines. You know what, we'll start with the people that are way more redeemable and then just like leave the one that I think is the most incompetent of them all to the end. So first off, a lot of the dramatic points in this episode really stem from the fact that people just aren't capable enough, right? It stems when it happens with Ichigo, it happens with Mitsuru, it happens with someone else. And when we have those moments that the plot takes a sudden, or goes a little bit sadder, or goes a little bit darker, incompetence is at the root of what's causing that turn for the worse. So let's begin with Ichigo, right? Ichigo here, she has her little mini freak out when she finds out that the Strelessia is coming. Alright, so hers is the most justifiable thing here. First off, on a pragmatic level, I would say, well, she should get her feelings under control. It's just like the robot's coming. What does it matter if the kid's riding with 02? What does that matter? When you take it in context, however, people get jealous so easy. Even in the real world, like, people get so jealous just off little things. Especially with this girl, she's going through puberty, she's going through volatile change, she's developing feelings for people. She's kissed the boy already, she's gotten really close with him. Her having a snap like that is justifiable given human behavior. It just sucks that it has to happen in a life or death situation. Like, really what happened was, oh look, these kids are holding a barricade because let's imagine you're like in a zombie apocalypse, pretty much, because that's an easier one to just understand. You're holding a barricade and all of a sudden you find out that maybe your guy and your love rival are coming to help you, and you just all of a sudden have a massive freak out because you're just upset that those two are coming to help you. Of all things, you're having this massive freak out while there's impending doom right behind a barricade. That's where it gets a little bit ridiculous. And then you could question, well, these kids were being trained for this. You would think that they could be taught or trained to prioritize, or be a bit more logical when you're in battle. But then you consider the whole system with the Franxx requires such compatibility that stunting any kind of emotional development would most likely stunt the potential of riding in a Franxx. So it's just one of these things where you need the volatility of children in order to make the mechanism of the robot work. And unfortunately, the volatility of children and puberty also brings in scenarios like this where the girl freaks out because someone's coming to save her, and it just happens to be the guy she likes and is riding in a fairly intimate position with another girl. In the context of the situation, she should have held it together better, but in the context of what these kids are, it's actually totally justifiable, I believe. It's justifiable that she was stupid. And I say stupid, but I'm being extra harsh here. It was just an issue of priorities, or it's just an issue of dealing with budding feelings. That's not a big deal. Moving on to the next person, Mitsuru. So his incompetence is just, he has a weird complex with Hiro. All the kids have a weird complex with Hiro. But I really like Mitsuru's parts more, because at the first half I was thinking, does he idolize Hiro to a degree? What is going on? When you're seeing him talk about Hiro in that first bit when all the kids are together, it gives the impression that this is the kind of guy who would kill you because he doesn't want to see you fail. That's the kind of twisted mentality that I thought we were going to get. As we go through the episode, though, we see that there's a bit more to it, that he wants to prove he's better than Hiro. And that's made more sense when you consider the first scene of the episode, which I really enjoyed once I looked at it a little bit closer. So with Mitsuru again, his incompetence stems from just that he's trying to catch up with Hiro, and he does a few things that is just kind of shady in general. First off, his whole issue was that he had compatibility issues with his partner, with his stamen or pistol. I think it was a pistol for the girl, whatever. He has a compatibility issues. He blames it on the girl. When you look at the screen though, when the two kids are about to ride in their Franxx, you see that his is at 21 and the girl is pushing 70. It's not the girl's fault, it's his fault. And we all know, we as viewers can key in on this when he starts going on his rant that he is amazing and that he couldn't possibly be at fault, but we know otherwise. So with with Mitsuru, we had those first instances. The plot takes a downturn when they find out that they're going to be down a Franxx. They can't head out to help out the rest of the squad. That's the first downturn. We get the second downturn when we find out that Mitsuru just isn't competent enough, and it ends off with showing the ramifications of riding with 02, which is also a beacon of hope for Hiro, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Going off from Mitsuru, the last thing that I think was actually really, really good with the Mitsuru segments of this was really that first scene, because it established something really crucial. In the last episode we noted, there is this idea of people standing higher than others. In the opening you see 02 standing over Hiro, and she's pretty much his salvation, his hope. In this episode you see a very similar, how do you say it, symbology, imagery, I think that's the one. You see a very similar imagery. At the beginning of the episode, you see Hiro on top of a throne of pillows. He is above everyone else. That is what it is. He is a hope in these kids' life. You see Mitsuru away playing with his little ball, and he comes up to Hiro and he asks him for a name. He pretty much asks him for that little bit of hope. So Darling in the Franxx does seem to is playing a lot with these imageries of people being higher than other people, and the person that's higher is a bigger representation of hope or anything else. Then you consider that these kids want to get away from, or Hiro in particular wants freedom in the skies, and he has a lot of sky metaphors, he has a lot of bird metaphors, and that makes sense because again the sky is so high up that given the imagery that we have, that the person who is higher is a person who gives salvation, then him wanting to go that high makes sense. He wants to be at the top. Not for any kind of power reason, but just because the person at the top is in a position to give more to the people below. So I really like that imagery when it came to Mitsuru. And I really like Darling in the Franxx for giving me this much information to dissect, or information to read into. Moving on. So, I have a special spot for what Hiro said in this episode, but I don't think his problem is really incompetency. His problem relates more to what Darling in the Franxx is going to be struggling with, I believe, or what I was worried Darling in the Franxx would end up doing. We'll leave Hiro for the end. We'll talk about the most incompetent person. So the most incompetent person in this whole scenario is Plantation 13's administration. The incompetence that was just exuded from these people is just on a whole other level, man. I am terrified for these children. Okay, all right, so the breakdown of what happened was these people sent the kids off for combat training. It was supposed to be a simple mission. They would just go down there, take care of a small klaxosaur, whatever, what do you call a dinosaur. They had to go take down the jelly blob, that's the one, and it was just gonna be a nice and dandy time. Of course, that's not how it's gonna work. Instead, what happens is you have these people saying, okay guys, you guys go out, you're not gonna take Celestia because you don't need her there, which first off, that was stupid. Anyway, you send the kids off, and then we have that first issue with Mitsuru. He drops out, and then all of a sudden, just with the one unit coming off that mission, Nana is saying this might be bad, or this might be tough. Okay, listen. If it is in such a position that losing even one unit of beginners is going to put you in a bad situation, you're not planning your operation properly. Next, they continue on with this. going back to the issue with Strelitzia, what exactly was the problem with having Strelitzia be there as a babysitter? Just have her deployed in case anything goes wrong. You can do that, you know. At that point, that's just a redundant safety. Like when it comes to mechanical systems or electrical systems in a power plant, you want redundancy. You want to always plan for the worst possible scenario. No wonder the world's in a freaking apocalyptic scenario if they're not planning for the worst possible scenarios. Look, everything that you do, you have to put in a certain amount of safeties, because for instance in cars you have to put in a certain amount of safeties to like ensure like some minimal degree of safety when something goes wrong. You plan for the worst case scenarios in a lot of situations, because even if it's a 2% worst case scenario, it could still happen. You have to plan for it. In the business world, if you don't plan for your worst case scenario with your really complex machines, you're probably going to be sued more often than not. Anyway, not the point. That's just a bit of a rant. No, back to the incompetence part. They're down one unit. The kids go in there to go deal with the Klaxosaur. It seems like it's going to be a good time. Mind you, they're still rookies. And then when things go wrong, when the Klaxosaur is actually still living and is fighting back, and another unit goes down. Oh, God forbid. If we went down 3 to 3 units and that made a situation tough, I can only imagine what going down to 2 units made the whole situation. Might have been abysmal at that point. Anyway, not the point. That happened, and then the Klaxosaurs start funneling in. And while this is happening, 02 is actively predicting. They're like, yeah, no, this isn't over. Like, this is gonna be a problem. And so at that point, you're thinking, all right, the things are coming in, and Nana gives the explanation. Oh, it was attracted by your magma energy. All right, listen. Even if they fired the magma energy, like even if that little reaction actually called in those Klaxosaurs, the fact that they got in so quickly and in such a giant amount tells me that these people do not have any kind of sensors to detect things in the vicinity. They don't have any kind of things to figure out if it's a Klaxosaur one-off or a pod of Klaxosaurs. I hope I'm saying the right name. Anyway, jelly blobs. They don't have the sensors. I'll make that assumption. Then you would say, well, you know what? This might just be a one-off thing. They didn't know. They didn't know. Except this is probably going to be not the first time that they could have lost a whole squad. As 02 points out, the plantation has lost whole squads before. Most likely due to incompetence and underestimation of the enemy. Look, it's fair. Like maybe they think Klaxosaurs only show up in groups of 1, right? The thing is though, 02 is there, and 02 was predicting that there was going to be more. Like she was pretty confident things were going to go wrong. And so when you have that happening, it's an issue of, do these people underestimate the vast experience that 02 has? Do they not listen to her? Do they not talk to her? Do they not get intel from the encounters that she has had? I am sure that these kids or these people that came in with her should have seen the kind of things that she's had to deal with. Because if she's had to deal with this kind of situation before, chances are these people could have made the, prediction that there's a possibility that there's more things around. No, let's see, at the end of the day, if you're not foreseeing possible things that can go wrong here, you're just incompetent. You're not doing your prognostics job right. It sucks. Like this plantation, no wonder they lost people previously. They set their people up for failure from the very beginning, and it's stupid. You have a mission where even losing one unit turns it bad. And you're going to play it like, just when you have a perfectly powerful unit and you're going to play it like that? Nah, man, that's just stupid. But there was a shining light in all this, that being 02. 02 excels when everyone else is incompetent because 02 wants to get her way. And she's gonna get her way when she has that standoff with Nana. Again, we're seeing that kind of imagery of people standing higher than the other. And 02 stands higher than Nana in that scene. 02 has all the power in this. From her experience, from her ability, it's only a matter of time till Hiro gets in that cockpit with her. That said, now moving on to Hiro. Hiro makes the comment that he kind of wishes, part of him wishes that she refused to ride with Misuda. So, like, this is where a lot of the concerns with this show is going to be, is whether or not Hiro's going to be in his head too much. And right now, he is in his head too much. He says that part of him wishes that 02 refused. Now, initially, I was going to go on a whole rant about how, no, like, she actually did refuse and he just wasn't taking it. But I realized he might also be saying that part of him wished that, his 02 abandoned his friends. Because, like, when you see the situation, you could tell he just wants his friends to be safe. So he's making the sacrifice of sending 02 ahead because 02 could probably save them. And then the reference to part of him wishes that she refused. It's probably talking about the part that wishes she would have just sacrificed his friends. That said, when you actually look at the procession, 02 is questioning of him. She is adamant that she doesn't want to ride with him. She gives the opinion over to Hiro, and Hiro ultimately is the one that tells her just to go. Like, the conflict here is just like 02 is going to listen to what he says because she has him in a relatively high regard. She holds him in a relatively high regard. So at that point, Hiro's just being a whiny brat. He wants, if we took it to be the most literal thing and not be like what I mentioned earlier, to some degree, Hiro's just saying that what does he want from her? She refused. She was questioning of him. Does he want her to just stand her ground and just say, no, I'm not going anywhere? But then the girl doesn't want to offend him, doesn't want to hurt him in any way. So of course he's going to listen. So, Hiro's issues are just, they're not the most alluring of issues to have to watch, right? They're not the most fun. Like, this is just the guy's in his head for way too much. Even though he has the girl right there, she has a lot of power in her negotiations. It's like, I just wonder how many episodes we are away from actually seeing Hiro man up and just go in there and just say screw the rules. But that's probably not going to happen because Trigger probably wants to play around with his mind space for another couple episodes, which is just going to suck, man. But hey, I'm totally into 02. 02 has been amazing thus far. She is leading the show. If only Hiro could just pick up on her behavior a little bit more. With that said, let's just go to the nice part, and that being the golden city that we saw. At some point, I wondered if this city is just sending these kids off to their doom and just watching them for entertainment. Because then the idea of incompetent orders, and then the idea of the other plantation or the previous squad of that plantation being wiped out, there'd be a darker tone to it if it turned out these people in that golden city are just watching these kids suffer. I mean, also, if you think about it, this is kind of pretty similar to most reality TV shows. You isolate the group of kids that you're watching on TV, and you just watch them in their daily lives, and then you go to see the Klaxor fights or the Jelly Blob fights, and it's pretty much like one of those challenges on a reality TV show where you see one of the kids maybe die. It's just, when you think about it in that context, it's I wouldn't be surprised if Trigger pulled that. If this was all a reality show and these kids' lives are just for people's entertainments, that would suck. But, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, Darling In The Franxx. All things considered, I like this show. I like that I got so worked up. I think the only negative part that I actually dislike is Hiro's problems. As for the incompetence, I like the incompetence just because it gives a lot to talk about. And I think it's just, that's a good aspect of it. It's one thing for characters to be incompetent when we're being told that they're super competent, versus when characters are just being incompetent by inference, because that's all in my interpretation, right? All that said and done, though, guys, that's it. It's a long video. I love Trigger shows, though, because they let me do this. But guys, let's end it there. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.